Welcome back to another episode of Sal and Pals Go to the Movies. This is another Throwback Thursday review, and I'm here with my friend Touly. Say hi, Touly.
Hi, guys.
And today we're going to be reviewing Top Gun. And just a fair warning, there's going to be spoilers up ahead, so you've been warned. As students at the United States Navy Elite Fighter Weapons School compete to be the best in the class, one daring young pilot learns a few things from a civilian instructor that are not taught in the classroom. So let's start off by going down the cast list. First, we have the director, Tony Scott. We have the producer, Don Simpson and Jerry Bruckheimer. And as for cast, we have Tom Cruise, who plays Maverick, Kelly McGillis, who plays Charlie, Val Kilmer, who plays Iceman, Anthony Edwards, who plays Goose, Tom Skerritt, who plays Viper, Michael Ironside, who plays Jester, Tim Robbins, who plays Merlin, James Tolkan, who plays Stinger, and we have Meg Ryan, who plays Carol. So I'm going to start off my review by going down my pros. I didn't get to see it when it came out. I didn't see it in theaters. I saw it when it was in VHS. I think it was one of my cousins who had it or rented it and said, let's watch this movie. First time around, I was not really interested. I remember that I thought it was kind of boring. This was me really young. Once I got older, I went back and saw it on TV. Then I started noticing the dogfights, the lingo they were using. Most of the lingo is pretty accurate except one where they say going ballistics. They use it in the wrong term. But then after that, I focused more on the movie and the Top Gun program, which to me seemed like back in the day was really cool, you know, like flying jets and shooting and stuff. Combine that with Airwolf that was on reruns on TV. To me, that was amazing. Now that I go back and watching movies with audio commentary or going online, looking up on forums and stuff like that, now I realize that we did have the real Viper, who is Pete Pettigrew, who is a retired Navy pilot and the Top Gun instructor. If you missed him, he's actually Charlie's older date at the beginning with the Officers Club, where she first meets Maverick. He was a technical consultant on set. To me, that like after years of watching this movie, just finding out that they put that little Easter egg in there and they actually named Maverick Pete after the real Pete, to me is just like this little bonus. And this is a pro on my list because if you're a fan of the movie, finding out that you miss these little things because they're not really putting it in your face, you kind of come upon them later on. I thought that was pretty good. When I go back and I see the scenes, the dogfighting scenes especially, we see them launch missiles. And that's pretty cool when you're a kid watching airplanes shooting each other in midair and just flying zigzagging left and right and stuff. But when you go back and you notice all the missiles, technically when they shot it, it was only 2 missiles that the Navy allowed them to shoot for reals when they were filming. So the crew had to take advantage of these 2 times where they were able to launch missiles. So they set up different cameras at different angles and they had a studio come in and recreate some scenes with miniatures. This company that came in, they were so good that the Navy actually investigated because they thought that the actual crew had launched more than 2 missiles. So, I mean, when you're a kid and you watch this movie, or this is the first time and you keep rewatching it, the thing that stands out is the song, The Danger Zone by Kenny Loggins. It's played 3 times in the movie, which I think has the most plays that played multiple times in a movie. That song is kind of catchy. It fits in your head and it's basically adrenaline rush song that fits anytime when there's an action scene on the screen. On top of that, we have a lot of famous quotes. We have, I feel the need for speed, on top of the classic, it's classified, I can tell you, but I would have to kill you. It's stuff like that. I mean, this movie is full of stuff that people reference now and then. Even when you're with your friends, you just basically say one-liners. Even if you haven't seen the movie, you know these lines. Now, that's enough for my pros. Let's go on to the cons. Down on my con list, I have one major thing. The thing is that this movie is pitched to us or sold to us as an action drama, but there's a love story involved. And I'm like, when you have the title Top Gun and you have a jet on your poster, what does the love story have to do with it? I mean, I could have done without it. Not saying that we shouldn't have Charlie in there to play love interest to Maverick and stuff like that. But in reality, they went back and filmed extra scenes after they had filmed the movie. For example, they filmed the elevator scenes months after they had finished recording. They filmed the sex scene. And to me, that's just going too much into the love boundaries of movies. I was more interested in the flying, enjoying the dogfights and stuff like that. But when they played the movie to test groups, they wanted a more love story oriented movie. And Top Gun, I don't see it as a love story. Also, the volleyball scene when everybody is shirtless playing volleyball and the song Playing with the Boys is playing. That to me seems like, hey guys, there's something wrong here when there's a bunch of guys and then just wait, maybe one girl over there in the stands who's really far away, just one female. Okay, there's something wrong with this scene. If you really wanted it, maybe a bunch of girls around and cheering them on and they're like, showing off their pecs for the girls instead of just being like, hey guys, just go out in the sun and just play volleyball and be awkward. To me, I could have done without that scene too. But I can see it that they were trying to focus on the female audience in the theaters. But as a civilian going to watch movies, I'd rather see dogfights in a movie called Top Gun. So you can see where I'm going. I was in there for the dogfights. I wanted more time for Maverick to be exposed to hitting rock bottom after Goose's death and actually having some sort of conflict within himself to get back on the saddle in the plane, and especially have a conversation with Meg Ryan about, does she blame him? Does she not blame him? Does he blame himself? They basically should get together and basically focus on getting Maverick back in the air. And for that, I think Meg Ryan's character, Carol, would have been a perfect person to play that person to get him back in the air and focus on being the best, not just for himself, but also for Goose. Instead, we just have her saying, hey, it's not your fault. He wanted to fly. He loved flying. If it wasn't for you, he would fly anyways. That to me was a really short scene. They should have dragged on or basically come back to it, or she should have came back instead of Charlie to basically get Maverick back in the air, flying and being the best of the best. So with that, I'm going to throw it back to Touly and see how he saw this movie.
So I saw this movie for the first time when it came out on VHS, similar to Sal here. Of course, I was a kid at the time. There were a few things that I did not appreciate about the film that I do now. But having rewatched it for this podcast review though, I would still say that in terms of cultural relevancy, it still stands pretty solid. Sal mentioned the songs that are in this film, songs that I, to this day, still refer to, whenever I'm with friends or whenever there's a moment that kind of calls to the theme of those songs. Yes, Sal mentioned Highway to the Danger Zone, a song that I really, really like. Also, there was another song that I believe won an Academy Award for Best Original Song for the film by Berlin. I think that's the name of the group, who sang Take My Breath Away. This song, of course, has been used throughout media, television series, commercials, as a callback to this film. So, like Sal said, if you have never watched Top Gun, but you have heard of, Highway of the Danger Zone, probably on radio stations, like old classics, Take My Breath Away. Now this was the film that spawned these two songs, in addition to a couple other songs that really became more famous because of the movie. In terms of how good the movie is though, or in terms of execution, I don't think it was that great of a movie. I thought the dialogue was sort of all over the place, and it didn't really strengthen the bond between Maverick and his competition. Like, they were trying to set up this thing where he was competing against the other guys, of course, at the school that they were attending. They made it seem like they were rivals, but at the same time, they were just cracking jokes at one another. I never got the sense that they were competing with all their efforts to be the top guy. I suppose they only did this to sort of give you the illusion of tension, so that at the end of the film, when they all went up together for the dogfight, that it showed that they overcame this initial hostility that they had towards one another. But together as a team, they are actually really, really good at doing what they do. But I just didn't get this sense of them overcoming this hostility. It was just them cracking jokes at one another. So I thought that was something that they could have driven home a bit more, so that I felt invested, not just in Maverick, but these other characters as well. I mean, the story in essence is pretty simplistic. If you take away the dogfight scenes, it's pretty much Maverick, is arrogant, but he's really skilled at what he does, goes to this school, meets this girl that he really ends up liking. She likes him too. They fall in love, and then Maverick's friend dies due to his arrogance during a training session, and then he goes on this low, which I thought they should have lingered a bit longer on, or they should have introduced this aspect a bit sooner into the film so that he could have more time to sort of experience and reflect on what happened. We see that he sort of blames himself for this, but I didn't think they did that enough to make me feel like, you know what, Maverick, I sort of feel for you now. They they didn't show enough for me to sort of feel for Maverick, like the struggle that he was going through. Again, another execution blunder, I feel like, that they could have taken advantage of, because to me, the relationship between Maverick and Goose, that was the strongest bond throughout the entire film. I was supposed to feel something stronger after Goose died, but the way, like I said, they treated Maverick's character after that happened, it wasn't enough to sort of make me feel like he really appreciated, even though they do try to show us that these two are like brothers, like family. And Sal mentioned the love interest. If you took this aspect out, the film would have still had the same impact as it did. I'm okay with love interest, but I feel like there has to be more to that, like substance, in terms of how the love interest sort of affects the main character, in this case Maverick. So the enemy aircrafts that they encounter at the beginning of the film, it was very random. That was one of the earliest things that they introduced into the film with no setup. So I was like, oh, I guess we're just going into a dogfight and I'm supposed to just appreciate it for what it is and not really care about who these enemies are. I felt if they had shown who these pilots were, I would have been more invested in the heat, in the animosity that I would have felt towards them. But it was just like, oh, these are the enemies and they're engaging Maverick and the crew, and now there's some sort of action involved and I'm supposed to just take it as face value. Because of this, I feel like the ending dogfight, again, great dogfight scene, but I wasn't invested in the enemy. I was just supposed to take it as face value. Here's the enemy. Who knows where these guys came from, really? You know, Maverick and the crew take them out. Also, none of the guys died at the end in that dogfight. One of the jet got hit by a missile, but the guy ejected from the jet. So he was alright. But I think I was left to assume, aside from, I think the 2 enemy jets that escaped, the other enemy pilots, they died from the explosions of getting hit by missiles. There was this like happily ever after sort of conclusion in that way, if you just don't include Goose, who actually was the only character who died in this film. Yeah, I thought overall the story was pretty bland in terms of execution, but I still liked the movie in terms of its cultural importance. And again, I referenced the songs a lot in this film in my everyday endeavors if the situation calls for it. Sal has mentioned that I stream, so if I come across a situation that calls to these sort of things, I sort of do a little karaoke to certain lyrics from the song. There's this push and pull kind of attitude, I would say, I have towards this film. I like how the movie has an impact on people despite them ever having to watch this film, because they just hear the music from the radio or from wherever. Because at one point I was like that too. I'm pretty sure I have encountered these songs before, but I just never knew where they came from until when I watched it when it came out on VHS. And then kind of like fine wine, the songs, the more I listened to them, it just grew on me as well. So there's that aspect in addition to just the song having this hypeness or this beautiful, elegant way in representing a love interest. Again, going back to the Take My Breath Away song from this film. I think overall, I would say the film is okay if I were to really judge it from both angles as one.
Well, yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I mean, the story is not great. It is just there. There kind of is no rivalry between Maverick and Iceman. I mean, the only thing is they bicker and just talk to each other. Like you said, they just joke around or like, you know, to me, I would have liked it if they actually got into a fist fight or something, you know, like Iceman did tell him like up there, like, I don't trust you. You know, like we're supposed to trust each other. You're out of control. I mean, for me, if someone tells me that, hey, you're playing with my life, I'd basically go, you know, fist fighting with that guy and be like, I don't like you, you know, like stay away from me. Don't even try to be my wingman or anything. But then in this movie, they just act like it's all fun and games, you know. And basically that's Maverick and Goose to me. They're just joking around because they're bros, versus the other team is, hey, you know, it's us against them in the story. But there's this lack of connection between the rivalry aspect of, you know, the teams. I really wanted to see something like that, but like I said before, and I'm going to keep saying it, I was just in this movie for the dogfight, you know, scenes. To me, that was basically the movie. Everything else is like left on the side, like, you know, side order of vegetables. You either take them or you just leave them on the plate. The same thing with the love interest. I think Charlie could have done more. She could have basically, not to help Maverick, but actually to like take his concentration away from the school and being a pilot. Maybe because of her, he got distracted and that's why Goose died or something. But in reality, Touly already already said that Maverick was responsible for Goose's death, but then I'm also along the lines of saying, hey, well, Iceman did kind of influence the scene right there. He was in front and he created some currents and, some drag or something, and that's why Maverick's plane stalled. Stuff like that. I mean, you can play on it. You can use Charlie. She can come influence them, and then Maverick will go down a hole and regret. I wanted to see Maverick really struggle, but I never got to see that. If I saw that and then Meg Ryan comes in as Carol and tells him, hey, don't feel bad. Goose loved flying with you like she did, and just basically be there and say, hey, Goose would have loved it if you would win this for him, then he gets back and says, hey, I have to do it for Goose. I would have been like, whoa, this is a bro movie kind of thing. You're like, hell yeah. And then he goes up against Iceman and then, beats him out of nowhere. I would have been great with that. But like I said, there was a lot of things that this movie could have gone into, but it didn't. And to me, since the beginning, with the title, with the intro card where it goes and tells you the history of the school, I thought it was going to focus on the school, the training and stuff like that. But no, we get a love interest, and then, which is not bad because Charlie's character is based on a real person who served for the government, the same way Maverick is modeled after Peter, the instructor from the Top Gun school. These are real people, and I'm okay with that. Was this movie the best movie ever? No, but it's like Touly said, it's a pop culture movie that has a cult following, and even though you haven't seen it, you hear things from this movie and you automatically know, hey, that's from Top Gun. Have you seen it? Maybe not, but it's Top Gun. It's Tom Cruise. It's Maverick and Goose. Everybody knows these things, even if it's just from like commercials. Let's go and talk about some really fun facts, because Touly did bring up that he saw it on VHS, and this movie is actually credited for starting the home video industry. Originally, VHS videos were sold strictly to rental stores at $100 each, but due to Pepsi buying ad space at the beginning of the movie for the VHS versions, it actually dropped down the price for regular people to own. So we actually have to give credit for this to this movie for letting us buy VHS at a reasonable price. If not, we would basically just be going to rental stores and keep renting them and returning them. This is the first movie you could actually technically afford at a reasonable price. That price, I don't have the quote for it, but I'm pretty sure it was still a little high, but eventually it got down to a pretty reasonable price. Another fun fact, Tom Cruise is 5'7", while Kelly McGillis is 5'10", but in the movie, they're the same height. Guess what? Tom Cruise was actually using lift shoes, which has like a little higher sole, while Kelly had to film her scenes barefooted. So, I mean, once you have those facts and you go back and see the movie, it's like the scene from E.T. where the boy basically steps on top of another boy to kiss the girl. To me, it's always gonna be in my head when I see this movie forever. It's Tom Cruise basically stepping on something to reach her height. I'm gonna throw it back to Touly and ask him for his final grade of the movie.
I'm going to give this film a 6 out of 10, more so because of the cultural influence the film has had and those facts that Sal brought up. I wasn't even aware of that, so I suppose I should give some value in terms, even though those aspects aren't technically a part in the film, I guess I should appreciate the film in that retrospect. Yeah, just the cultural influence that it has had in the movie and entertainment industry. I think that's enough for me to give it a 6 out of 10 because it could just be a film where I have it on the background. I wouldn't mind. And when it gets to those dogfight scenes, then I'll probably watch them. Or whenever I hear Highway to the Danger Zone, I'll stop for a bit to just jam to the song. Definitely, if you haven't seen Top Gun and you are aware of all of these lines, these music, and you're not sure where it came from, maybe just give this movie a watch, or at least maybe just watch it a little so you kind of see how they used it in the film. I'm pretty sure at one point or another you have come across things from this film. Like I said before, now you know where these things come from. So 6 out of 10 for me.
I'm going to go with a 6.5 out of 10. I was in it for the dogfights. They don't disappoint. Once I looked into the movie more, now that I'm older, it actually gained a little more traction with me. I'm more for the movie, but not the story. If you haven't seen it, I would actually recommend you to watch this movie because soon we're going to have Top Gun Maverick. It's a sequel to this movie. So I really hope the next movie has a better story to it. Again, 6.5 out of 10. The movie could have been good and gained more few points, but it is what it is. So I guess that does it for this review of Top Gun. Please join us for the next 3 reviews, which are going to be Halloween themed. The next movie is Touly's pick, and it's Shaun of the Dead.
Although no one official is prepared to comment, religious groups are calling it Judgment Day. There's as an increasing number of reports of serious attacks on people
who are literally being
Eaten alive.
A witness reports are sketchy.
Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, you can find our social media links down below. And like always, keep watching movies.